Hello, I'm Jonasz Rewiński and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. In recent months, the Russian army has suddenly discovered space. Not in a scientific sense, mind, but in the most utilitarian way possible, namely by placing Starlink terminals on strike drones. The widespread use of satellite communications has dramatically increased the accuracy of attacks, resistance to electronic warfare, and the overall effectiveness of Russian UAVs. And unfortunately, it really worked. Let's grab our evidence bag and look at a few pieces of associated footage of Russian drones running rampant across Ukraine, courtesy of this particular life hack. Fortunately, a response was quickly mounted to this new development. Mikhail Fedorov, Ukraine's former Minister of Digital Transformation and now Minister of Defense, who also has direct contacts with Elon Musk himself, appealed to the head of SpaceX with a request to urgently shut down the unauthorized use of Starlink by Russian occupiers. And Musk, believe it or not, responded promptly and without lengthy philosophical tweets. As a result of that, SpaceX launched countermeasures, and on the 1st of February, Musk confirmed that the measures were working and could be strengthened if necessary. The consequences were not long in coming. A slowdown in the operation of Starlink terminals used by Russians has been recorded, with drones equipped with such terminals now more vulnerable to air defense systems. Plus, there is a registration system in place, so if your Starlink isn't registered with an official Ukrainian unit or agency, well, you're out of luck. Some sources, including Russian ones, report that Starlinks not registered to the Ukrainian army simply stop working at speeds above 90 kilometers per hour. This is basically the same as in Pokemon Go. Once the game's dev team realized folks would cause road accidents while trying to snatch that precious Snorlax, they moved in with a speed limit. So now it's gamification in reverse, sort of. The reaction of Russian propaganda was predictably explosive. Vladimir Solovyov, who has long been broadcasting in a state of permanent hysteria, suggested detonating a nuclear bomb in space to destroy Musk's satellites. It seems that even physics is crying here. But Solovyov did not stop there. He also told Russians that, take a deep breath, the Tesla Optimus humanoid robots were allegedly created for war against Russia. Like, bro, this isn't a Michael Bay movie. And it's not that Optimus we're talking about here. Also, if the Russians identify as Decepticons, then congrats, it's somewhat on point actually. Evil robots want to take over the world, except rather more tech-savvy than an army that's using donkeys as troop transport.
И сюда относится столь любимый многими в России Илон Маск с его компанией. А исходя из этого мы должны понимать, что нам надо выстраивать систему противодействия не только на уровне государства. Нам просто надо четко понимать, где враг. И та милитаризация космоса, который сейчас предлагает... потому что, давайте скажем правду. Что такое Starlink? Это милитаризация космоса. Потому что все, над чем работал Маск, все, что мы видим сейчас, работает в интересах войны против России. Все, чем занимается Палантир, это опробирование поля боя для убийства русских, для войны с нами. Надо назвать вещи своими именами. Поэтому я не понимаю, почему, например, спутники Илона Маска не являются для нас законной целью. Один подрыв ядерного оружия в космосе, как я понимаю, довольно серьезно решает эту проблему. Я не говорю, что это хорошо. Но просто сейчас, когда они предлагают развернуть еще более массовую группировку, которая уже будет заниматься и вычислительными возможностями, эта вот информация прошла сегодня. Плюс, а вы считаете, те миллион роботов Optimus, которые Маск объявил, будут выпускаться на заводах Tesla, ранее выпускавших ряд автомобильных моделей, он где окажется?
The hysterical reaction of Russian television only emphasized the scale of the problem. When calls to detonate a nuclear bomb in space are heard in response to the blocking of illegal internet access, it becomes clear that the arguments have run out, because Russia never had the right to use those Starlinks in the first place. They usually bought them from third countries and then strapped them to drones without ever telling anyone. So basically, they broke the rules. Imagine being a cheater in a video game. You get caught for using hacks to boost the score, so what do? If you're Russian, apparently, you walk out screaming that you're gonna burn down Steam servers and nuke Xbox Live because they won't let you cheat. Figures. But the reality is much more prosaic and painful for the Kremlin. Ukraine knows how to work with technology and its partners, while Russia only knows how to shout nukes, even though everyone's already told them to get better material 1,000 times. And while Moscow draws nuclear mushrooms in orbit in its imagination, Russian drones are plummeting to the ground on the front lines as quickly as myths about Russia's greatness and all-powerful weapons. So much for cheaters' paradise, Moscow. Time to get good at the actual game. Alexander Lukashenko, the man who has ruled Belarus longer than some countries have existed within their current borders, suddenly felt the call to be an international election consultant. This time for Brazil. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but bear with me. The self-proclaimed guarantor of peace and stability offered his assistance in organizing the presidential elections in that country so that, in his words, they would take place in a peaceful and calm atmosphere.
Мы очень переживаем за то, чтобы нынешний президент Бразилии на этих выборах сохранил свою должность. Насколько я также информирован, он подтвердил свое участие в этих выборах. Мы всячески будем способствовать тому, если это нужно будет для Бразилии, чтобы выборы прошли в спокойной и мирной обстановке в интересах бразильского народа. Если это...
It sounds convincing, especially if you don't mention the details. For example, that after the elections on the 9th of August 2020, in Belarus itself, the peaceful atmosphere looked like police vans, overcrowded detention centers, and batons instead of ballots. Tens of thousands of detainees, hundreds of documented cases of torture, broken lives. All this became the trademark post-election package in Belarus. Or the fact that after that stability, the country was hit by an unprecedented wave of immigration. Hundreds of thousands of Belarusians left, some to Poland, some to Lithuania, some just anywhere, as long as it was far from the peace provided by the state. Even in 2026, the number of political prisoners in Belarus remains in the thousands, a figure that not every dictatorship can boast. If Brazil suddenly wants to learn how to hold elections without choice, then yes, the experience of Lukashenko is invaluable. But if the goal is a genuine expression of the will of the people, then I would say it's a hard pass. Lukashenko can export stability in words as much as he wants. The only problem is that the whole world has already seen where it ends at home, with political prisons and silence instead of dialogue. Frankly, it sounds more like Lukashenko's itching for some election interference, but for some reason decided to ask politely before doing this. Also, why does Lukashenko care if Lula da Silva wins the vote? Because that's clearly what he wants. Trade figures offer some insight here. Brazil is one of the top clients for Belarusian fertilizers and potash, which is used to make fertilizers. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Brazil wants to resume Embraer aircraft sales to Belarus. I guess the thought of a more US-friendly president sends chills up quite a few spines out there. And with this, we conclude this episode of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news updates and commentary.